Hello and welcome to session one of the Writing for Research. It's important to note here that regardless of your academic discipline, doesn't matter if it's engineering, arts, humanities, histories, one thing that that we're always looking for, there's a number of several common themes, and they are above all clarity, scholarship, and communication. You have to be able to communicate your message in a clear manner. You have to be able to demonstrate that you are someone who's capable of scholarship, somebody who can actually make the case for something and actually can convince the reader. And if you have poor punctuation, spelling, and grammar, that's certainly going to detract from what you're trying to get across in terms of your message, regardless of whether people think it's right or proper or appropriate. Even with all the modern technology, you're still often judged by the ability to write your thesis, and your thesis consists of the written word, rightly or wrongly. So instead, just the outline here, we're going to look at punctuation and grammar, paragraphing, and abstract writing. So our first section here, we're just going to kick off here looking at punctuation here. If you just look here, that's going to, if you don't want your reader to pause, there shouldn't be a comma there, because as this demonstrates, it's very difficult to figure out what you're saying when your punctuation makes a sentence unreadable. As you can see that there, I could barely pause for breath there at that stage. So quite simply here, if you look here, if you don't want your reader to pause, there shouldn't be a comma there, because as this demonstrates, it's very difficult to figure out, comma, what you're saying when your punctuation makes a sentence unreadable. Just as I suppose as a rule of thumb, by and large, if you have to just pause for breath, um, it's just certainly going to make life a lot more difficult for your reader if you don't put that pause in. And just as a sort of a quick sort of guide for people, I suppose, just remember this, that if you read with your eyes, the problem is because you've actually written the material, your eyes, so to speak, is filling in the gaps, and that's the problem with that there. Where if you actually get ideally someone else to read it, but at the very least read it out loud, because if it's an overlong sentence, if something is unclear, if it's difficult to follow, then I think you'll certainly get that sense that there's a problem with your sentence like that. So I think that's I can't emphasize that too much, that always get something proofread, or if worse comes to worse, at least get to read it out loud yourself, because as I said, your brain is going to fill in the gaps there. So you wrote it, so you're reading with your eyes, it's going to make sense to them. The semicolon there, I think, is one of the things there that I just, from talking to students over a period of time, it's certainly an issue that people seem to find difficulty with. It's when to actually use a semicolon. So I have a number of just examples here, just to try and sort of get people to work through like that, because I think that the important thing about a semicolon, is that it helps you to connect closely related days, when a style mark stronger than a comma is needed. And I suppose what I'm saying here is a semicolon certainly demonstrates an ability to write in a bit more subtle a manner. Certainly provides you with an opportunity to show that you can write in a slightly more scholarly and academic sense. But as I said, I really do want to reassure people that when I say scholarly, it doesn't mean that it has to be overly complex. Simple and well written and clarity is good academic writing. So I don't think that overlong sentences or use of polysyllabic words is necessarily the key to academic writing. So when we want to link two independent clauses to connect closely related ideas is when we sort of use the semicolon here, and I have a number of examples where you'll start seeing that there is a relationship here. So let's just look here. Some people write with a word processor, others write with a pen or pencil. So there is a close connection here. We're talking here about writing, so writing is the connection, but here we're using the tool of a word processor, and here we're using pen or pencil like that. So we are linking, because if you think about it, how many words would you have to then write if you actually stop the sentence and then start it again? So we're just two independent clauses, closely related ideas. Me way, me way, me we may want to link clauses connected by conjunctive adverbs, some stuff like however, or a transitional phase there, which sort of where you're linking one phase onto another like that. But however they choose to write, people are allowed to make their own decisions. As a result, so you can see we're moving on here. So the transitional phase here is, as a result, many people swear by their handwriting methods like that. So as I said, we are relating, but we are actually using a transitional phrase here to link from this preposition here into this preposition. Well, you can start to see examples here of how you can actually use the semicolon. More use of semicolons here, where you want to link lists where the items contain commas to avoid confusion between lists, because you want to be quite sure where the list begins and ends and where's a comma, and so we're trying to break up the list. So there are basically two ways to write: with a pen or pencil, which is inexpensive and easily accessible, semicolon, or by a computer and printer, which is more expensive but quick and neat. Okay, so we started off here with the full colon here to indicate that we're now going to have a list of some sort here, and then we're breaking it up here. That's the first part of it, and then we're breaking it up here in terms of the semicolon, and then onto the second bit there. Or link lengthy clauses or clauses with commas to avoid confusion between the clauses. So let's look at here. Some people write with a word processor, a typewriter, or a computer. So they're all in the list here. This is the first list: a processor, word processor, a typewriter, or a computer. But others, and now we have our transitional phrase here. So to come up for different reasons, choose to write with a pen or pencil. So you can actually see here that it said that the semicolon is a very sophisticated and useful tool that you can actually use to help try and sort of write in a more sophisticated and more subtle manner. So I think it's a nice way of sort of using sentences. So if you've never been quite sure before, hopefully these links here, these examples will give you a sense of what to do. We have a number now of more worked examples. Avoid using a comma when a semicolon is needed. So let's look at here. Incorrect: the cow is brown, it is also old. The correct: the cow is brown, it is also old. So if you think about it here, we're talking about the cow, but brown is a colour and old is age. So they are related to the cow, but as I said, it would be incorrect to put in a comma. And that's the point there we're trying to make. The next one here, the incorrect: I like cows, however, I hate the way they smell. I like cows, semicolon. Okay, so we're now breaking it up with the however. Then we have a comma after however. I hate the way they smell. So as I said, we have the conjunctive there in terms of the however. And let's look at this one here. I like cows and I like cows here, and this indicates here we've a list coming up with the full colon in both of them. So let's go back to the correct here. I like cows. They give us milk which tastes good. Okay, so we're talking here about the milk and we're saying that it tastes good. There's a relationship now in terms of we're still going back to the cows, but we're now moving on to something different. We've talked about the milk and we've told you that it tastes good. And now we have the semicolon. They give us beef which also tastes good. Okay, so we're now referring to the good and the beef. We're still referring back to the cow, so we're still in the one sentence. And they give us leather, which is used for shoes and coats. So we had a semicolon here to break up the milk and good, the beef and good broken up again, and then they give us leather. So the sentence all relates to the thing about the cows, so therefore it's all the one sentence. But we wanted to break up a number of elements which all related to the cow. So as I said, the point there about the semicolons, it will enable you to keep points or clauses which are all connected to each other, but may have slightly different intentions or meanings, and therefore you do want to break them up with the semicolon, but you want to keep them in the one sentence. We now move on to, I think, in all my years of lecturing, and certainly one thing which comes across in terms of marking is the affect and effect decision. So we have to decide on when we sort of make an effect or an affect decision. For us, the effect is a noun meaning an outcome, a consequence, or an appearance. To affect is a verb meaning to transform or to change. Okay, so it's about, we're looking here in terms of consequence and transform. So the effect is to have a consequence, to affect is to affect a transformation in something. So we'll do a number of examples here. So we'll just take this one here. Does manufacturing mineral products affect or effect the environment? And if so, what is the affect or effect of gold mining? I do not see how that is affecting or effecting the environment as much as the article claims. So just stop and think there for a second. What is your, for each sentence here? So is it the green of affect or the red of effect? Well, let's look here. Does manufacturing minerals, they affect the environment? Okay, so they're transforming the environment. If so, what is the effect of gold mining? What's the consequence of that gold mining? What is the outcome? And the final one then, I do not see how that is affecting the environment as much as the article claims. So we started off here, the answer was affecting the environment, the effect on gold mining, and affecting the environment again. So we maybe, might be useful to have a sort of shorthand tool to sort of help us through. So we'll move back to those tests in a moment. So we'll just go here. In terms of the effect here, what effect did foot and mouth disease have on your business? The tip here is to try substituting the noun effect with the noun consequence to confirm it's a noun. Therefore, what consequence did foot and mouth disease have on your business? If it sounds okay, therefore effect is okay. Now let's look at affect. Did foot and mouth disease affect your business? The tip here is to try substituting the verb affect with the verb to transform to confirm it's a verb. Did foot and mouth disease transform your business? If it sounds okay, therefore affect is correct. So now let's look at our second test here. Eating chocolate affects or effects my mood. It makes me genuinely happier. The effect or effect is quite noticeable. Gin, on the other hand, makes me sad. I first noticed these affects or effects during my teens. So let's look at the sentence here. Eating chocolate affects my mood. It transforms my mood. It makes me genuinely happier. The effect is quite noticeable. The consequence is quite noticeable. Gin, on the other hand, makes me sad. And I first noticed that these effects during my teens. Okay, so I noticed the consequences of this chocolate during my teens. So we used transform or consequence, and that's just said it just to try and get a sense of a shorthand way of sort of when you present it with that. And our third one here, poor English affects or effects your grades. So our thing here is poor English effects or affects your grades. In other words, it transforms your grades. Okay. The second one then, the effect, the consequence, if you will, of using poor grammar should not be understated. And finally then, take it from me, it has been affecting or transforming my grades since I was 11 years old. So hopefully some of these sort of little shorthand tips about consequence and transform might sort of help you make some sort of level of understanding about how to use effect and affect more appropriately, and also the examples of using semicolons. As I've stated there, it will certainly enable you to hopefully write in a little bit more sophisticated and subtle a manner. So that takes it up to the end of the punctuation and grammar section, and in the next video then we will look at paragraphing and abstract writing.